It is Wednesday, and you all know what that means. It is time for another episode of Life in the Movies podcast. I'm one of your co hosts. My name is Ryan Cam. Thank you all so much for tuning in. This week, well, the Oscars have come and gone, and well, the word on the street is the ceremony wasn't actually terrible this year. We actually got a lot of good stuff coming out of it. Brendan Fraser won. Everything Everywhere All at Once got a lot of love. There's a lot to unpack with that ceremony. We'll be diving into that, and we'll also be reviewing season 1, episode 8 of Luke Cage, continuing our discussion there. But first, I have to introduce my co-host Jacob Martin. Jacob, how you doing?
I'm doing great, my friend. It's always a pleasure to be on your podcast to talk about movies. Even though I've said time and again, I've never been the biggest fan of the Oscars. I didn't watch it, but hearing all of what happened or last night at the time we're recording this on a Monday night, I was actually kind of satisfied by some of the choices that were made. There were some real good picks that I'm really happy about, and I can't wait to talk about it with you.
Yeah, there is this meme going around. It's been around for a while, but it's this meme of the guy who was Lando Calrissian in the Solo, the Star Wars movie, Donald Glover. He walks into this room with this pizza, and like the room is on fire, and people are like beating each other up. I'm sure you've seen the clip, right, Jacob? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I might have seen that. It sounds familiar.
That's kind of like what most Oscar, like day after Oscar Twitter is like. It's just like everything's just on fire. It does not look good. But I didn't watch the ceremony. I watched Cocaine Bear at the theater instead because I am a purveyor of the fine art of cinema. But
I could just see the headline. My co-host Ryan Cam ditches the Oscars for a cocaine bear.
but I saw Cocaine Bear instead, and I caught some clips later. I saw some of the key speeches, and overall, I think the Academy did a pretty solid job, and we'll be diving into that. But first, Jacob, let's give us an update about school. How's school going for you?
School's going pretty good. Actually, I did a speech on First Thessalonians today at the time of recording this, and that was actually pretty well received. It's been going along pretty good. Got some finals coming up in a couple weeks, finishing up the first quarter. But it's been a very encouraging experience, and I have not regretted my decision once.
What was the speech about?
I was doing a speech on the day of the Lord, the end times, second coming of Christ, all that stuff.
So, Book of Revelations, right?
And no, first, actually, it was a lot of it was mentioned in First and Second Thessalonians.
Oh, I have not gotten to those books yet, so I definitely missed out on those. But how long did the speech have to be?
20 minutes.
Oh, geez, that sounds long.
I had to do quite a bit of revisions on it to get to 20 minutes because my first draft I was at 15, so I had to figure out how to get it up to 20, and it paid off. Thank God for that.
Yeah, I remember taking speech class when I was dual enrolling during high school at the community college, and the speech we had to do was 5 minutes, and it felt like it lasted like forever and a half. So I cannot imagine 20 minutes. You're a braver man than I am in that front.
Yeah, but it turned out pretty good, I would say.
Now, well, that sounds good. Well, keep us apprised of various schooling activities. But did you
All
get a
right.
chance to see or watch anything worth noting?
Uh, I haven't been watching that much movies since I've been doing a lot of schoolwork. I've been catching up on The Mandalorian season 3. There's been 2 episodes so far of that. It's off to a good start. I'm excited to see where that's going to lead. Ryan, have you been watching Mandalorian?
Yes, I have a bit of a cheap plug. I every Wednesday I'm going to be on T3 Media Studios' channel recapping and reviewing all of season 3 of Mandalorian, and I'll tweet that out whenever that goes live because it is a live stream. But yeah, I've been enjoying the season, quite frankly. I feel like I'm going to be in the minority, and we're getting 8 episodes, so a lot can happen in the next few. But I have overall, I've been liking the direction they're going. I feel like, and this is just speculation, I feel like they're going to go in the direction of, well, we've got two schools of thought for Mandalorians. We got the Din way and we got the Bo-Katan way, and I feel like both of them are going to do this. And so I think if they play the cards right, I think that could be very interesting.
Yeah, the whole history of the Mandalorian culture, I'm glad to see they're really diving into in season three. And I like seeing they're finally diving into a lot of history that made the Mandalorian themed episodes in the animated shows some of my favorites. So I'm excited to see how it's going to play out in this season. It's been pretty enjoyable so far. Uh, hanging out in a hanging out in the preaching school environment. My roommate introduced me to a show called The Chosen, and I've been watching that show. I just started the first season of that, and it's pretty good so far. If you haven't seen it, it's this crowd-funded, faith-based show where they're trying to do like an in-depth series of the life of Jesus, and I think the show is still undergoing its I think it's on its third season now. I need to catch up on it. I just started season 1, but I'm actually really enjoying that show so far. I do highly recommend it if you're in the I guess in the faith-based community and want to see something a real good in-depth take on the life of Christ based on the Bible.
Yeah, I've been toying around because every year on my channel, Rachel Wagner and we review something faith-based related because it's Easter Sunday and it's only right. 2 years ago, we did Prince of Egypt with Durban, which is one of my absolute favorite videos that I've ever done. And then last year she came back to talk about the Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. And one of the ideas on the short list for this year was The Chosen. So I'm hoping to get Durbin back because he is Mr. The Chosen, if any of you
Yeah,
follow his
yeah.
social
He
media.
was the one that I guess kind of introduced me to the Chosen because he's the one that I think kind of opened, exposed, and brought the show out to so many people. And now the show's kind of become a kind of an underground, it's kind of weird saying it, but kind of an underground phenomenon and the people that watch the show seem to really enjoy it.
Yeah, so if Rachel and I do talk about The Chosen, I hope that I can get him on because, I mean, he is Mr. The Chosen, like I said. So I hope to get the resident Chosen expert onto the channel. And I'm enjoying Mandalorian season 3 as well. Like I said, I saw Cocaine Bear then on Oscar Sunday. It was interesting to say the least. I think the best way I can describe it is like Elizabeth Banks binged a bunch of Quentin Tarantino movies and was like, all right, let's make something along that style. It's very much, it's kind of like Reservoir Dogs in the sense that these people are all coming together for one common purpose. They're different stories, but united by one thing. And so it's pretty interesting in that regard. Really, the highlight of the movie for me was the character played by O'Shea Jackson Jr., who is Ice Cube's son. His facial expressions in this movie just made me laugh so much. Like, he was my favorite part. Like, he's in this. Alden Ehrenreich, who was Han Solo in Solo: A Star Wars Story, he's in it, and he's quite good. Ray Liotta, this was his final performance, and at first I was like, oh crap, like his last movie is going to be a movie called Cocaine Bear, but he's actually pretty good in it. He's pretty solid. So he gave it socks. Kerry Russell is in it. It's honestly, the movie is 1,000 times better than I was expecting, but it was actually pretty good.
Yeah, I've heard varied opinions on Cocaine Bear. It looks very ridiculous on the trailer alone. I'm glad you had a fun time with it. I think this sounds like a movie that you probably should not come in taking the movie seriously and just expect some B movie cheese out of it.
Yeah, the biggest compliment that I can give is that the movie knows exactly what it is and doesn't try to go beyond that. It's very silly, but it leans into it, and therefore it makes it a fun experience. And then just today, as of filming this, I rewatched John Wick Chapter 3, which I forgot how much that movie just rocks. But that movie rocks, and it rocks hard. Like it just starts and it does not stop. I forgot how much I loved this movie, and it's become my favorite of the trilogy, and I am amped beyond belief for John Wick Chapter 4. Like I just want to I feel like skipping Shazam Fury of the Gods entirely and just getting straight to John Wick 4, but I'll probably see Shazam just for the sake of being a DCEU completionist.
Yeah, I haven't seen John Wick 3 since it came out in theaters. And I think I've said a couple times on the channel, like the action in that movie's great. I just felt like the world building got too convoluted, and where I thought it would be a good ending to a trilogy, to me, the cliffhanger was very forced and abrupt. And I feel like they're going to milk the franchise dry. But we'll see. I hope four delivers for you and to all its fans, and I hope I get something out of the fourth movie as well. But for me, the first one is still my favorite. I prefer the simplistic storytelling on that one compared to where it became like this big expanded world building with like the Continental and the groundwork of the assassins and everything.
Yeah, well, what have you all been watching lately? Leave it in the comments. We'd love to read what you have to say. Well, Jacob, let's get into some Luke Cage talk. Let's talk about season 1, episode 8, called Blowing Up the Spot. Maria campaigns to turn the city and the police against Luke, and not even Misty or Claire may be able to save him. Diamondback is just nuts. Like he just doesn't care. And I think this is the first time we've truly seen a truly hurt Luke Cage in just physically hurt, because like we see just in this episode just how bullets just like ding da ding da ding, they just fly off of him. But one of that Judas bullet, and it's like he's pretty much donezo. Like he's still moving forward, but it's like might as well be member of the Walking Dead. So and it's heavily implied that this guy Willis, a Diamondback, is someone from Luke Cage's very distant past. But Jacob, what did you think of this episode?
Yeah, I was cautiously optimistic about Luke Cage going forward because after the shocking end of episode 7 where Cottonmouth is killed off by the Mariah character, I feel like they might have wasted, I think, probably its best asset with Mahershala Ali, and that the rest of the series would go downhill from there. However, I still thought this was a good episode. I'm still invested in the general story. I think Alfre Woodard as Mariah, there's still a lot of interesting facets to her character, who's very much just as ruthless, if not more ruthless, than the Cottonmouth character. I think, especially more so being in the political realm, I think makes the character all the more scarier, I would say. The whole story with the Judas bullet, I thought was very well done. There were a couple moments that left me a little bit squeamish at times because of the race around the clock to try to get the bullet out and the difficulties of that because of how the bullet was made and Luke Cage's skin. I think it's it was kind of refreshing to see a more vulnerable Luke Cage because I can see some criticize the show that where Luke Cage is too powerful, but I like that we get to see a more vulnerable side of him here. Mike Coulter really pulled that off. And even the main antagonist that shot Luke to begin with, and that whole history between the characters and some of the implications we've seen, where uh, we have highly implied that he was the guy who framed him and sent him off to prison to begin with, and I I took it at the end that that was his brother because he said it was his brother at the end, which I kind of predicted that with some of the Bible references he was making and stuff, but I thought that was a really great reveal in the end, and if that's the main conflict at the end of this season, I think it's a worthy subversion with what I thought was going to be in the first half, but it looks like it's an intriguing second half that I'm excited to see get resolved.
Yeah, honestly, after watching this episode, Mariah Dillard has shot up to my most interesting characters list because she, like throughout, she was like New Harlem Renaissance, and she was very much like she was kind of two-faced about it because now we're seeing the real Mariah Dillard, and I feel like for a while she was believing that she was trying to be different and not like her Mama Mabel. But no, was like the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, and she can be just as ruthless because that's pretty much all that she's known, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of like that whole saying, the uh in this case, the sins of the parent tend to double that on the children, pretty much, which is a Bible principle.
Yeah, one thing I forgot to mention in last week's discussion of episode 7 was that you get the feeling that Cottonmouth kind of didn't want this life. He was very good at the piano, and even his Uncle Pete, who gets killed at the end of episode 7 in a flashback, he was trying to help like Cottonmouth try and achieve some kind of musical dream. And so it was very interesting to see that. And then it was just this whole idea of destiny is like, can you change your destiny, or just are you just always meant to be in this life? And so you get the feeling that Cottonmouth didn't want this and Mariah did, but Cottonmouth, when he was in there, he portrayed the essence of, hey, I'm in this for the long haul, I want this, and Mariah tried to cover it up. It's an interesting dynamic. I feel like more can be studied out of that.
Yeah, I think if we had more flashbacks, I think we'd see more of that dynamic between the two characters. You get enough in the context that we got, which makes Cottonmouth's death more of a tragedy when you learn more about his past in the flashbacks that we saw in episode 7. But man, Mariah is is quite the boss in this episode. She is especially the emotional speech that she gives to try to get people to sympathize with her and think Luke Cage is the one at fault. Very, very good acting on her part.
Well, I mean, it's Alfre Woodard, so of course she's going to be excellent. So I was a little worried that when Cottonmouth like died, I was like, there goes your main villain, guys. What have you got planned? But no, they've managed to keep things interesting. I'm invested in Luke Cage versus Willis and Diamondback. I'm interested to see what's going to happen with Mariah Dillard. I'm interested to see what happens to Misty Knight and the whole thing with her boss. I can't remember her name is Priscilla, I think. I think
Yeah,
she I think she's firmly in the pocket of Mariah Dillard. It's heavily implied.
yeah, it probably is because there's this friction between the two characters and they don't really trust each other. And even Missy Knight, she kind of went a little off the rails at the end of the episode because she's desperate to figure out the truth, but then she's still a little off in some regards, and she nearly tries to choke Claire in her desperation for answers. And it's not really the right direction to go if you're trying to be a good detective, good cop, or whatever.
Yeah, definitely not the best look. Even if your intentions are pure, there's just that kernel of doubt to where you're like, are you sure you're really like hoping for the best here? But like I'm still very interested in seeing where this show is going to go. I think like Daredevil is clearly number 1 on the hierarchy of the quality of these shows, and I think Luke Cage is a solid number 2. And we've got some episodes to go, so I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think as of now, I would say yes, especially between this and the first season of Daredevil.
Yeah, very good. Well, what did you all think of Luke Cage season 1 episode 8? Leave your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to read what you have to say. All right, well, let's get into the main event for the evening. The Oscars 2022 style are officially in the books. We've got winners. And so this is not going to be us reacting to every winner. This is just going to be really the highlights, or at least the biggie awards, Jacob. So let's start breaking down if you are ready.
Yep, I'm definitely ready.
So for the winner for Best Actor, Brendan Fraser, he got his flowers while he was still alive. He ended up winning, defeating Austin Butler for Elvis, Colin Farrell for Banshees of Inisherin, Paul Mescal for Aftersun, and Bill Nye for Living. Now, The Whale's not the greatest movie ever. There, I do have a lot of problems with it, especially in the likability department. Brendan Fraser saved that movie and made it at least halfway watchable. And so I'm so happy that he won, especially of these choices. I thought for sure Austin Butler was going to win because Austin Butler just crushed it as Elvis. But man, I'm so happy that Brendan Fraser can now tout Oscar winner Brendan Fraser.
Yeah, even though I loved Austin Butler in Elvis, I thought he was terrific in that movie. Despite having not seen The Whale yet, this was definitely a much deserved win and a great comeback for Brendan Fraser. I've always defended him as an actor. I've enjoyed a lot of his roles over the years, and it's been great that Darren Aronofsky found the right role for him to get him back in the acting spotlight after many years of personal problems and other things. So I'm hoping we get to see more roles from Brendan Fraser in the future now that he's won an Academy Award. A very great win. I'm so happy for him.
What touched my heart even more was the fact that he won it in front of his two sons. His two sons were there, and I don't know, I just got emotional for that because of just all that he's been through, and just to see his sons like just be there for like Brendan's big moments. You can't script something like that. You just have to sit back and be like, this life is kind of rough sometimes, but occasionally one of the good ones gets his just desserts. And Brendan Fraser is definitely one of the good ones. And speaking of one of the good ones, let's parlay that into Best Actor, Best Supporting Actor. Ke Huy Quan, Short Round, is officially an Oscar winner.
Yeah.
And I cannot be happier for the guy, especially his speech, Jacob. I don't know if you saw the speech, but it's a beautiful speech. They will be replaying this in hype packages going forward. When he says, Mom, I won an Oscar. Like, if you don't feel happy for that guy, you need to check your pulse. That's all I'm saying. He ended up defeating Brendan Gleeson for Banshees of Inisherin, Brian Tyree Henry for Causeway, Judd Hirsch for The Fablemans, and Barry Keoghan for The Banshees of Inisherin. I think outside of maybe Brendan Gleeson, this was Ke Huy Quan's one to win.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Even with some of the other awards contenders, I'm like, yeah, Key's getting all the love, and I'm sure he's going to win the Oscar for this award. And I am happy for him. This is the only clip I've seen from the last Oscars was Key's acceptance speech. I watched it just minutes before we recorded, and what an incredible speech! Very emotional. You definitely feel so much joy for the guy, especially considering he hadn't been acting for so long, and the fact that this is his return to acting after what 30 years, I'd say, and he's winning an Oscar for it. That just speaks volumes of how good he was in that movie.
Without a doubt. And really, this whole Oscars was just all the love to everything everywhere all at once. But we'll touch on that in just a minute. But search that speech out. It is a fantastic speech and really just speaks to, like I said, this life can be rough sometimes, but one of the good ones eventually gets the big thumbs up from the man upstairs. And Brendan Fraser and Ke Huy Quan are two of those individuals. Well, for Best Actress, and I'm so happy that this is a thing now. Michelle Yeoh is now an Oscar winner. Like, she beat out Kate Blanchett for Tar, Ana de Armas for Blonde, Andrea Riseborough for To Leslie, and Michelle Williams for The Fablemans. I could have sworn that they were going to swerve this one and give it to Blanchett, but really, this was yet again, this was Michelle Yeoh's one to lose, and I'm so happy that she won.
Yeah, I definitely agree on that one as well. Probably definitely the best acting that she's ever done as an actress. Like I normally think Michelle Yeoh is more so martial arts. action, which she still brings that in this movie, but you actually see a layered character in this movie, and you see that, oh yes, this awesome Asian lady that kicks a lot of butt is actually a really great actress, and I really appreciated what she brought in this movie, and I'm glad the Oscars really saw how good of a movie it actually was, and a lot of it being the great performances, even with it being a weird movie of hot dog fingers and talking rocks. There's a core family story in the middle of this multiverse of madness, and Michelle Yeoh really excelled in bringing such life to this very very tortured character.
Yes, and not to mention the general theme of, yeah, in the grand scheme, none of this is really going to matter about 10,000 years. This podcast, you or I, like, we're not going to matter. Like we'll eventually be forgotten. So during that time where we are remembered, we should try and put our best foot forward. It's kind of reminds me of stuff that I would read from like Marcus Aurelius or Seneca or one of the Stoic philosophers that I like to read. Very much along the lines of memento mori, remember that you will die. So remember that you will die, so try and make this life as good as possible. It's very stoic in that regard, and I like that. I like the spirit of that. Well, moving on and keeping the Everything Everywhere All at Once love train going, Best Actress in a Supporting Role went to Jamie Lee Curtis, and she beat out Angela Bassett for Black Panther Wakanda Forever, Hong Chow for The Whale, Carrie Condon for Banshees of Inisherin, and Stephanie Sue also for Everything Everywhere All at Once. And if there is anything that I have seen online in terms of discourse of being like, really, that was your choice, this is probably the biggest one. And I agree to a certain extent. Jamie Lee Curtis has been around forever, so I have a feeling this is very much a. It's kind of like when Al Pacino won for Scent of a Woman. It's like, thank you for your service. There are like five other things that Pacino could have won it for, but he didn't. I feel like there are a few that Jamie Lee Curtis could have won for. I'm glad that she got the award so she can tout Academy Award winner Jamie Lee Curtis. But at the same time, I'm sitting there like Stephanie Sue and Angela Bassett are like right there. Like, come on now. And I don't want to come across as a jerk or anything. I like Jamie Lee Curtis, but I got more out of those two performances than Jamie Lee Curtis's. But that's just me.
Yeah, I think I would agree with you on that. Nothing against Jamie Lee Curtis. I do think it's good that she won the Oscar, and I'm glad that uh, she can now say that, hey, I'm an Academy Award winning actress. That's pretty neat. Nothing against that. Congrats on that. But I do agree. I think of all of the ones that won this, I think even in the performance wise in that movie, even though I enjoyed Jamie Lee Curtis, I feel like the other actors, I feel like were far more memorable and gave more of a lasting impact compared to Jamie Lee Curtis. Like even Stephanie Zhu, who was the daughter, I felt like her performance was far more memorable to me compared to Jamie Lee Curtis, and I'm surprised she didn't win. Or Angela Bassett and the Black Panther Wakanda Forever. Like I thought she was like the front runner for supporting actress. I don't know what happened there, whether it was the Academy's bias against superhero films or whatever, but that one's one that one was definitely the weirdest choice, but at the same time, I still enjoyed her performance. I'm glad she won, but I feel like that was one where I feel like some of the other actresses I think probably deserved it more than her. If you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, if that particular category wasn't as strong, then yes, definitely give it to Jamie Lee. However, that's one of the strongest best supporting actress categories that I've personally seen in a very long time. So it is, I don't know, it's very complex. I'm happy for her, but at the same time, I'm like, there are others that were just as good, if not better. But again, I think we'll just retire the issue for now. Happy that Jamie Lee won, but at the same time, it's like, come on. But let's move on for best animated film. it was awarded to Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, which, I mean, Puss in Boots was right there. But again, I wasn't crazy about Pinocchio, but I'm glad something stop motion related won. I love that art form so very much. And of course, Guillermo del Toro's speech about animation warmed my heart immensely. So it wasn't my choice, but again, I'm glad Guillermo del Toro got some love from the Academy. He's got a Best Picture Oscar, now he's got a Best Animated Film Oscar under his belt. So congrats to him.
Yeah, I think I would agree with you on that, Ryan. I didn't love Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. I liked it immensely, but I didn't care for it as much as other versions of Pinocchio, particularly the Disney one. And I feel like there were other animated movies that came out in 2022 to me that were far stronger, like Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. That would have been my personal pick for best animated feature. However, I do agree. This win was definitely a victory for stop motion animation. There hadn't been a stop motion film that's won at the Academy Awards since Wallace and Gromit: The Curse of the Were Rabbit back in 2005. So it's nice to see stop motion get some love. And just from uh, his acceptance speech, which I read about, and some of the previous speeches he won, like at the Golden Globes, he's passionate about the art of animation. And I feel like his win at the Academy Awards for animated feature, I think, is a victory to show that, hey, animation is not just something geared for kids, it's an art form. It's something anyone can watch and experience, and it's part of the cinematic experience that should be just as valued equally as live action.
Without a doubt. So I'm I was kind of bummed that Puss in Boots didn't win, but at the same time, I mean, it's Guillermo del Toro. He's pretty much done. He's pretty much spotless in the director category, and it's stop motion too. So I can't get too mad at it. But next up in the best directing category was given to the Daniels for Everything Everywhere All at Once. Well deserved indeed, beating out Ruben Östlund for Triangle of Sadness, Todd Field for Tar, Steven Spielberg for The Fablemans, and Martin McDonagh for The Banshees of Inisherin. So the Daniels can officially say that they beat out Steven Spielberg at the Oscars. That is theirs forever.
Yeah, I was actually, again, I was shocked by that because normally the Oscars tend to go for the safe choice. And I thought Spielberg was going to win it because of The Fablemans being like his legacy film. But the Daniels still did an incredible job on Everything Everywhere All at Once. They had to bring such a complex story of the multiverse with so many universes and different concepts and theories while telling a simple family story at the heart of it. That's not an easy task to do. And yet these two guys pulled it off and made one of the most original movies that came out in the last year that meant so much for so many people, myself included. So I'm glad that the Academy did show some love to the two guys that were responsible for creating such an inventive movie like Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Yes, without a doubt. Congratulations to the Daniels for their win, and I do not think this is the last that we will see of them. Honestly, it was a big night for A24, period. So, like, A24 is a studio I'm a big fan of, and they were definitely getting the respect that they deserved on the night. One thing I did want to bring up is Best Film Editing was also given to Everything Everywhere All at Once, which was well deserved, but it also beat out Elvis and Top Gun Maverick, among a couple of others for the award, which, I mean, the editing for Elvis I thought was very good. I was for sure thinking either that or Top Gun Maverick would have won, but no, Everything Everywhere All at Once won. Uh, I'm glad it won, but I'll just say for me personally, if either Elvis or Top Gun Maverick won, I wouldn't be opposed to either one of those choices.
Yeah, those are all three good choices for the editing award at the Oscars. I think when I was making my own prediction just for the fun of it, I predicted it was going to go to Everything Everywhere All at Once because of how crazy the editing was in that movie. How they were trying to, there was so much stuff going on in that movie, and yet the directors had to make it very competent with the universe hoppings and the different versions of these characters, and it was still a very cohesive movie. So the editing, especially the constant flashes and cuts in the film, are so insane and very well paced. Yet you can still tell what's going on during the whole movie. It's definitely one of the coolest edited movies I think I've seen in quite a while.
Yes, that is definitely for sure. And then, of course, getting to Best Picture is, of course, Everything Everywhere All at Once. And then I think just as an honorable mention, just to say that Elvis, Avatar: The Way of Water, and Top Gun: Maverick all were nominated. Now, I had a feeling that none of those were going to win. It was a very low chance that they would. But credit where credit is due, considering the fact that Top Gun: Maverick and Avatar: The Way of Water alone, their box office total is near the top of all time. So it was very interesting that they ended up getting nominated. And like I said, weren't going to win, but I thought it was very interesting and very well deserved in all honesty.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. This was one of the most balanced Best Picture nominated plates in quite a while, and that's what I feel like it should be. The Academy Awards are supposed to represent the best of cinema, and the best of cinema can be any type of cinema. It could be a blockbuster, it could be a tearjerker drama, it could be an indie film, it could even be an animated film if you want it. And I feel like this was more so of a step in the right direction for the Academy to try to balance it out between the different types of movies that different people like. And I thought it was a very fair assortment of movies that were nominated this past year.
Yeah, I feel like the best picture selections of the Academy Awards in a given year should be a good little slice of what the year was like in film, not to sound overly pretentious, but I feel like in a perfect world, if you look at it, you should be like, all right, that was what was big, that was what was loved by critics, and that was what was loved by pretty much everyone. You look at the list for this year, and it was like critical darling, box office darling, sometimes both, an obscure thing, but largely liked by those who saw it. So it was a charcuterie board, if you will. It was a little bit of everything.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And want to get to the best picture win of the night.
Yeah, I said that was Everything Everywhere All at Once, which of course was very well deserved. And honestly, I'm just so happy for everyone involved with that movie because I just love seeing great movies getting rewarded for things. I feel like this is the most universally like, yes, finally, like the most universally accepted win probably since Parasite, if my memory serves me right.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that. Parasite was one that when it won, everyone was happy that it won, and that was such a out of out of the box breath of fresh air type movie that did a lot of good, not just for like the Oscars, but for film in general. And I feel like it's going to be the same with Everything Everywhere All at Once. I did not think it would get this much love at the Academy. It was cool that it got nominated, but I'm like, I think the Academy is going to go safe on some of their choices, and they'll pick like the ones that some people won't get into because they personally cannot get into the movie. But Everything Everywhere, I haven't seen too many people dislike the movie, even with how weird it is. And yet, I have not seen a single person complain about this movie winning Best Picture. I thought it was a great win for the people involved, for A24, the Daniels, of course, and then I think just film in general, just people making these inventive movies that kind of go out of the box and just kind of stand out. And that's what I appreciate about this win. I think I read this was, I think there hadn't been a movie that has like swept the Oscars like this since Return of the King, I'd like to say, back in 2003. So that's an accomplishment right there.
No doubt is definitely one of the better Oscar ceremonies and just Oscar years period, I think, in a very long time, because in past years it has been incredibly divisive. But I feel like everyone walking out of this was like, they actually got a lot right this time. But what did you all think of the Oscars this year? Leave your thoughts in the comments. We would love to read what you have to say. And that is another episode in the books. Thank you all so much for watching and listening. Jacob, it is a privilege as always. Where can the people find you?
People can find me on Letterboxd, Twitter, and Facebook, and you can also subscribe to my YouTube channel where I occasionally do movie reviews on there. I haven't done as many since I've moved to Tennessee, but I do some occasional live streams where I talk about stuff I've been watching. I edit the streams down and then re-upload them as smaller videos. I hope to have a new live stream this weekend. I also do hangout live streams occasionally. I did one last week with Henry Mockingbird. This Thursday, I'm doing a live chat with Jason the Old Millennial, so be on the lookout for that. I'm excited to bring him back on the channel for a updated hangout. There's Even though I'm not doing as much, it's always good to have new content out every once in a while, and just say, hey, I'm still doing some stuff, at least not as much as I used to, but it's still fun to talk about movies sometime.
Yeah, and Jacob's channel will be linked in the description. Go give him a subscribe there. As for this channel, I wanted to say thank you for all the love that my video got where I talked about my horrible experience watching Creed 3 in the theaters. It was an unplanned video. It was not as edited as I would like it to be, or I usually have it. But man, it gained a lot of traction. So thank you all so much for that. Thank you all. Thank you for sharing my pain with me. I got some pretty cool stories as a result of it. But thank you all so much for that. Coming down the pike this week, I will eventually see Shazam: Fury of the Gods. My work schedule's a bit weirder than normal, so I will be seeing it later than I planned to, but I will see it. But the Road to John Wick Chapter 4 will continue with my review of John Wick Chapter 3. So stay tuned for all of that. And like I said, thank you all so much for watching. For Jacob Martin, my name is Ryan Cam. We will see you in the next one. Take care.